we need to understand all the sides that are in the picture and know how to explain and to get to them to understand what our meaning and what our cause.
I think great empathy is brilliant, but I'm not sure that everybody understands empathy because sometimes I don't know if it's just in Hebrew or the general.
Can you define change once again? Like, what do we mean by change?
Change is taking your product, okay, in the direction that it really needs to go. Okay, the product needs to move, continuously evolve, right? If you're in a company, all right, come back in a year, whether they have a good product manager or a lousy product manager, it will change. In most cases, right? Because there are people there, right? Work needs to happen. There's some output that goes through. That's how companies work. Making change or making the change in the right direction, because there's always change. Okay, but making the change in the right direction is what makes product leadership so effective if it works. Okay, and by the way, it works the other way as well. Okay, if you don't have those skills and you don't know how to lead in the right direction, you will take a product maybe even goes back in terms of the effectiveness and how it serves its goals. Did I explain that?
Yeah.
But I want to go back to empathy just a little bit, because I think it's a really important term, and I think that a lot of people sometimes confuse it with sympathy. Okay? How would you guys define empathy? Everybody give me a definition.
Sensitivity.
Sensitivity to what?
To others' pain.
To real problems.
So what do you put yourself in the shoes of somebody?
Okay, so that's close or even exactly the Oxford definition, but it's somewhere in that direction. So the idea here is to put yourself in the eyes of someone else, compared to the other one, sympathy, which is to sympathize with someone. Okay, someone got hurt. You say, okay, my kid got hurt, fell off his bike. Oh, I feel bad for you. All right, to use empathy is something that's a lot more challenging than it sounds. Right? It sounds like something really, really easy, but to put yourself in the position of your client, your user, whatever, and try to understand what their pain point is, what they want to do, where they need to go. Something that's much more difficult, much easier said than done. What else? What other skills?
You need to have the foresight to see what's the hurdles you're gonna encounter a year from now ahead, not just what hurts you now. To have some for the foresight of the future.
Okay.
Strategic thinking?
Yeah, because what hurts you now would not be the thing that hurts you a year from now, 6 months from now, and so on.
Okay. What else? Yeah.
You need to be able to inspire people, to drive them. It's about management of meaning, okay? Because the one that basically casts the meaning into the vacuum and successful in communicating the vision is the one that can able to drive the change.
Definitely, I completely agree. Again, influence.
Product marketing.
No, it's not just. But I don't think. By the way, I don't think that this is product marketing.
And product management, there is a fine line between it. So,
but I think
the
that
good product manager needs to know marketing. I think it's about development.
I completely agree. But I think with what you said right now, the whole influence part is mostly internal. That's what you were talking about, right? So, within the organization.
Yeah.
So that's not necessary. It doesn't matter if you're a product marketing or product manager. Convincing the organization to go in a certain direction or in the way that you see, again, if that's the right direction, it doesn't really matter, right?
Yeah, but if you are successful in telling the story and it's about product marketing, okay, you can tell the story to the internally in the organization and in that way inspire people, drive them in the direction that you want to drive them.
Completely agree. Very, very important. What else?
If I may add, communication, like to improve communication between different team members or teams themselves, between stakeholders and whomever it should be.
I think they're very much connected, but yes, definitely, yeah.
I think facilitating discussions, other teams to get involved into decision making of product management, to get more collaborative view and as a byproduct more engagement with those teams.
Okay, I agree. Again, the last three are kind of like connected. Okay, they're all about communication or getting buy-in within your organization. What else do you think is about?
Actually, I think that it's a bit different and important.
No, it is different.
No, because it's that point is important from the point of view that it's not just about communication or vision or driving from the correct venture, but actually about creating partnerships creating a change that is actually through a coalition within the organization, which is what we eventually see in any organization that have multiple different groups that if they are not enrolled into a process that is happening, then a change becomes very, very difficult. Even if the communication is great and the vision is clear and it can be communicated very clearly, but if others don't come in on board and understand how it kind of leads to a change that they want, it's hard to do. And so I think this is a bit important and a bit different from the point of view that partnerships within and around the product are key to actually eventually instill a change in the organization.
I agree. I think it's part of influence, but I agree. Yeah. Last one, because we need to speed up things. Yeah.
I think there is something very basic and initial that may sound simple, but the ability to move forward processes, from idea to product, to know how to make things done, and not just, I don't know.
Yourself or for others?
For others, execution.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think I agree with everything that was said here. I'll just list a few more that the top one is influence, as I said, communication, empathy, essentialism. Essentialism is more about us. It's more about how we use our time. And sometimes, we talked about that a lot, about how, our time is being, stolen from us. How things that are not necessarily, we look at the end of the day and say, okay, what have I done today? Just, everybody just pulled me in all different directions. Was I really doing, was I really contributing or putting enough, bringing enough value to the table? It's something that we need to
unique
focus.
value to the company.
Yeah. Strategic thinking, okay, said as well. Decision making, something that we haven't discussed. I think it's something that decision making, a lot of people don't see that as a skill. It's something that it has methodology, it has ways of doing. Again, nobody can tell you, there's no formula for making a great decision, but there are ways that you can do this to find, which or compare the different directions that you can take. Again, won't go too much into that, but I think it's something that's very, very important. Ideation, the whole thing about coming up with different ideas. And when you think, okay, these are the best ideas that I have, maybe you have more ideas, maybe you don't need more ideas. The whole concept of how you look at ideas and new ideas and when they are needed, when they are not. Dancing with fear. Dancing with fear is a term that if anybody's heard of, Seth Godin uses this a lot. The idea is, if you can get to the edge of your comfort zone, get past that and do the things that you don't feel comfortable with, not because you don't think that that you're good enough, but that those are the things that can actually make you better. And a lot of key quotes that say that success is always on the other side of fear and things like that. So that a lot of time that stops us as human beings, not just product managers. And the last quote: leadership foremost reflects a high level of awareness in the way that we view things and situations, and in the way that we guide ourselves. A lot of time, leadership is about ourselves. How we're able to stop, zoom out, look at ourselves from a third-person perspective, and say, are we actually doing what we need? If we would be our boss, what would we say? Are we doing a good job? Not a good job? Many times we would say, okay, we're not doing a good job. We're not utilizing our time. We're not utilizing our strengths. We're not doing what needs to be done. And if you're able to do that, which is again, very, very difficult, self-reflection, self-awareness, to look at what you're doing, kind of give yourself grades and guide yourself, that has a lot to do with leadership. Okay, so again, I hope we can agree that leadership is not just telling people what to do and telling people, come after me and do what I'm doing. Can leadership be taught, be learned? What do you guys think?
Can be exercise.
What does that mean? Yes or no?
You learn while trying to do.
I can exercise, I can exercise doing a lot of things that I would never be able to do, but
You can
Of course,
learn it.
no one is a natural born leader.
No one walks straight away from the womb.
You
okay.
can learn it,
So
some
you
will
learn.
find it easier because it's more intuitive to them, and some will take longer, but it is a skill that you can learn.
Okay, so I would be even like more deliberate than that and say, yes, you can learn it, okay, absolutely way, yes, you can learn leadership, okay? Nobody can, it's very difficult to learn charisma, okay? Some can try to teach you how to be more charismatic, maybe take acting lessons or something like that, but that's not the idea, okay? If we look at leadership, that's not just the internal and being an extrovert, being someone who, he's like the focus of attention of the room. You can do the other stuff, you can do, and you can drive change. You don't have to be that charismatic person that drives people. You can use methodologies, and you can use things that you can learn to, again, some of them are tactics, some of them are strategies, but to drive the change and bring the things that you want to move forward. Okay, but how? So that's the question. Where's the secret sauce? Where do you buy it? On Amazon, of course, even though they don't deliver to Israel. It's small here, but you missed that as well. So how do we move on? Okay, what's the holy trinity of learning to be a leader? So there's a lot of things, a lot of courses all around it. You can do it online. You can do many different things, and there's a lot of reading and knowledge about things. Sorry that it's a bit small. But the three things that it's centered around are mindset, skills, and knowledge. Okay? Let's break it down. In terms of knowledge, we talked about it a little bit before. There are many places where you can, acquire knowledge, find knowledge, online, videos, whatever. About the technical, the very practical, tactical skills and information that you can find, but also about the soft skills, also about the things that how to be a leader, how to influence, which sounds like something that is naturally connected to charisma. It's not. A lot of things that you can learn and you can improve significantly by knowing what you're doing, by tactics and strategies. So we've talked about knowledge and where you can get it, which is everywhere. In terms of skills, okay, when we talk about leadership, it's mostly about soft skills. Okay, and I hope that you all agree here, or at least most of you agree. It's not necessarily knowing how to be a much better product manager, or knowing everything about agile, or knowing everything about a certain type of development methodology, or even agile methodology. Right? Soft skills can be learned, and those are the things that really make an impact and really make a difference. Listening skills, self-control. Again, these are just a few examples, right? But empathy. We talked about conflict resolutions. These are things that, if you get better at them, you can drive change, you can drive influence, you can make things happen in the way that you want, in the direction that you want to take them. And mindset. Mindset, I think, is the most important thing, which is a lot of times, people just hop over that, and they kind of like miss that part altogether. They say, okay, I understand. They get to the assumption, or they understand that they can learn to improve their leadership skills. They understand it's the soft skills that they need to improve, and they go out and read a book, and they say, okay, great, now I know how to do things, but it doesn't work, it doesn't stick. For some reason, it just, it sounds great in the book, but for some reason it doesn't happen. I see a great lecture, I say, wow, I really connected, that really resonates with me, but somehow I don't come to utilize it, I don't find the way to do it myself. Why does that happen? Because it just doesn't change like that, right? Something needs to happen. Something needs to happen, you need to initiate that. It's a process that requires a lot of support. And again, it's not a one-time thing, and getting that support, especially for us, for product managers, which the role that we do is we need to admit it, it's kind of lonely. Not in the terms that we don't have any friends in the company, right? Because we have you can have friends with the developers, with QA people, God forbid, but we're usually very communicative and talkative people, and we can find friends. The problem is that we usually don't have a lot of other product managers, especially when you get to a little bit of a senior role in the organization that you can talk to and share dilemmas and frustrations and things like that. And finding them outside of the organization, it's a bit more difficult, right? There aren't too many opportunities to do that. Like, this was an opportunity, but Nir kind of noticed that there wasn't a lot of networking going on here, and not a lot of people like talking about these things. So just one thing to consider. And if you won't construct the environment, no one will do it for you. Okay? In order to improve yourself, in order to improve the leadership skills, you need to build an environment to do that. Again, it's an ongoing process that needs to happen. Let's talk about the environment. And we're getting close to the end here, but you don't go anywhere because afterwards there's the panel. But mutual accountability. Mutual accountability is one of the, you can call it tactics. It's actually a tactic and not even a strategy, where you can help yourself or build an environment that helps you grow as a leader. It will help you relieve the loneliness that we just talked about a second ago, and it can work sort of like a support group, right? If we find a way to connect to other product managers or in similar situations, think about you guys. If let's say I'll give you guys an assignment after we finish here, everybody finds 3 or 4 people and say, okay, let's just talk together. Let's just build this group and say that we talk, or even get on a Zoom or a Hangout call once a week. Everybody just shares what they're feeling, what their frustrations, where they're getting stuck, getting a few ideas, or or talking about the things that are working. Okay, think about the value and the benefit that can bring us. Because today, most of us, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, does anybody here have this kind of support group that they're doing right now? Like other product managers that they're talking to in different companies?
Yes.
Different companies.
Yes.
What was that?
Yes.
Okay. Everybody talk to. What's your name?
What?
In some sort of formalized way, or just like friends?
A bunch of people, friends or colleagues.
And how do you find that? No. Is it working for you? Do you see value in it?
Yeah.
Okay, so again, it's something that I've gotten into as well. Sometimes people call it mastermind groups or things like that, but it works. It works because again, it gives you the ability to open up, share the things that you won't necessarily share with people in your organization, and also will allow you to. These people will help you support the process that you're going through, especially if you're going through a process wanting to be a better leader. That can be very, very beneficial. Okay. Mentoring. I think someone mentioned that before. Mentoring has 2 sides, obviously. Usually it's one-on-one. So mentoring could be finding someone who's more experienced than you, who's done more than you, and learning from them, okay, telling them, okay, help me out, mentor me. But that's, again, there's a lot of risk in there. Again, not the risk not a lot that you can lose, but you need to find someone that you connect to. You need someone that talks the same language and they're committed in the same way. If that's someone that's more senior than you. But that's very, very beneficial, and I strongly recommend anyone to try to find a mentor, no matter how senior you are. Okay, the more senior you get, the harder it gets, but it's always beneficial. The other side of mentoring, which I think is a lot of times underrated, is being a mentor. And you don't have to be someone with 10 years of experience or 15 years. 5 is enough to get someone to say, okay, I'm willing. Go on one of the Facebook groups and say, I'm willing to mentor someone who just got into product management. Now, the amount of value that you can bring into the table to this person is a lot. But on top of that, it gives you a lot as well. Why? Because it makes you confront yourself, look at yourself and say, okay, what do I teach this person? What's the proper way? How do I deal with things? And when you look yourself in the mirror and you look at the processes that you're doing, there's a lot to be learned. How many people here are doing mentoring in terms of are mentoring other people? 3, 4? How do you find that? And on top of let's put aside the value that you bring to like the emotional side and that you're contributing to someone else. Do you learn from that? Do you feel that you learn from it?
Usually like find people in the event or a conference, talk to each other, then you can figure out if you can help somebody or something.
No, but I'm talking about mentoring like for a long term, like saying, okay, I'm mentoring.
I'm talking about like talking on the conference, about like working with the person afterwards. Have a call or coordinate how to event again on the level of person. Also there are like unit or if there is
Product lead.
yeah.
No, I wasn't asking, I'll rephrase. I wasn't asking how you find the organization, but how does that help you? Do you think that that's something that not the mentee?
Your knowledge organized, or you even learn on the way when you're trying to explain something. It's like a framework technique. If you can tell it, or if you can draw it, then you understood it.
Eddie, what do you think?
I think there are two ways in mentoring, which one is it helps you really think about your processes, like it many times improved my own processes by reflecting, and I think at least 50% of my blog post is because I had some successful mentoring, and I thought, okay, that's worth a blog. And the second part is because, and you mentioned before, product management, every company is different, and no matter what you do, you are working in one company, narrow yourself. You're maybe only B2C or only B2B or only, or in this company you're not doing marketing. And doing mentoring to different people broaden your product management. In fact, as a product manager, doing mentoring helps you widen your horizon. And when you come, and later when you find your next job, it's not something new. You've heard it somewhere, right?
I have a question. I would like to use this opportunity to ask people who are, let's say, long time already not mentoring, product managers, what it gives you to mentor someone from the middle level or even junior. Let's talk about middle level first, because you already know that they know something. What it gives you, why would you
I'll stop for a second, okay?
Sure.
So let's do that a little bit later. Just one.
Because I want to understand, why to mentor, I see, because we learn from it. But why someone more experienced will want to give you your knowledge?
That's what
Because you're broadening your perspective
yes.
again?
Yes. I'm broadening my perspective.
100% broadening your perspective. Right.
Okay. Okay, I see.
You can get a person with 20 years of experience. Okay, I got a mentor with 15 years of experience, and at some point he was more technical product manager with more technical skills, and I had more experiences in startup. He was at some point I was helping him.
So it's exchange.
Yeah, it's
okay.
exchange. You always have to have something.
So the fresh blood.
And also I can force them, for example, I want to start a podcast and I have to bring someone for the first episode, I can force them. Really happen.
Also helped me become a better manager. I understood how people are thinking, and then it was much easier for me to convince them, because I could have empathy. how they look at things, right? So by hearing it in an open discussion and in an informal sense and remote, I understood how people think.
Yeah, the real problems and the real stuff.
Okay, so moving on, action. Okay, I think again, putting us back into the environment, right? We want to make an environment for ourselves to learn and to become better leaders. Now, how many of you have read the Monk Who Sold His Ferrari? Used to be really famous in the 2000. That's one of the new age. Means that everybody raised their hand are kind of old, like us. But or Art of War. Okay.
Much older.
It's much older. So these are really deep, right? Strategic thought of ways to look at the universe or look at life. It's not necessarily about, right? I don't think many of us have read the Art of War to go into battle and to be better at it, right? How to look at your life. But the question is, asking all you guys who've read one of these books, how much, if I ask you, okay, what are those books about and what like actions did you take out of them today? Not back then. Like, how much do you remember out of that? I think a lot, a little bit, not at all.
I probably remember more of Machiavelli.
Of your what?
And then the
Of Machiavelli.
the monk who sold his Ferrari.
Yeah. So, but why is that? Why does that happen? Because like I mentioned a little bit
You
before.
learn strategy. You learn
It's not just about the strategy, it's about the process that goes through our brain, right? Because we read a great book, we see a great lecture, or we've been to a great meetup and we say, okay, wow, this is amazing, you know, really, really heavy, I love what I've learned here, right? And I'm definitely going to use it, right? And a week later, like, what was that about? I can't remember what happened. The thing is, as humans, right, if we don't practice, if we don't get things into some sort of routine, or put a habit into things, we just miss it. That's the way our brain works. And if we build a habit, or if we build an environment that allows us, and that's part of like what I was talking about, the kind of like community that keeps us in some sort of mutual accountability, that keeps us aligned, that keeps us in check every week or every 2 weeks or every whatever, it helps us get processes and actually check in and say, okay, so how is that going? How is that process going on? And it can make us, get the information and the knowledge to sink in deeper, and to actually make us do stuff with the things that we really enjoy and we really love and really resonate with us. We actually move it forward. Okay, so again, it's up to us to make the environment. So the whole process, the whole chapter, or this whole slide about environment, the idea, and it's part of the mindset problem, that we need to understand that in order for knowledge to be utilized later on and to extract the value out of it in our work as product managers and as product leaders, we must build an environment to do that. An environment to learn, to get that knowledge in, to get that, to move forward, but also to utilize and to keep, to turn that into a habit, into some sort of routine as part of our life. Okay, so I don't know if I've blown your mind up till now. Yeah, you get a chance to talk in a minute, yeah, but.
No, I just wanted to emphasize something about, which is very important about mindset, which is creating all the control mechanisms or the environment is very important. But the thing that you mentioned about mentoring there out of the slide has to stand out, because from every human's experience in any aspect of life, changing a mindset is not something that you can do on your own. You can't wake up one day and say, I have to think differently about anything, about sport, about diet, about your professional life, and anything else. And it has to be, you have to find a connection to someone which is out of your brain to be part of that change. Without that, the mindset change can only stay an idea then, and you can, every night you would think about, oh, today I didn't start, tomorrow morning I'm starting it again, and it will never happen. And so everything is important, and environment is crucial, and action, and everything is important, but mentoring is key. Without it, you cannot change your mind.
I agree and don't agree. I think that there are other ways. So what I was mentioning before, like the community or think tanks, okay, it doesn't have to be someone that, there's like one mentor and a mentee. It could be a group.
Yeah.
Talk about things, but I do agree that it has to be external.
It doesn't have to be a psychologist, which would be great to do a mindset change, but it has to be somebody external that would be able to reflect and put the mirror in your face and show you all the blind spots, because you don't see the blind spots. That's the definition of blind spots.
Actually, usually it's just start internal and then you do find external, because someone not ready doesn't change mindset.
That's true.
So it's like you need to get some.
You need someone to slap you in the face, right?
Get you to switch, and then you need to find someone to help you.
Yeah.
You need to make
That's
a
also
decision.
philosophical of product management.
That will be that's going to be the.
I would add
Really.
self-development process doesn't relate at all to product management, helps a lot in becoming a great product manager.
Completely agree. Yes.
I think that I can reflect on this point. With my group, we have peer reviews, product reviews, weekly product reviews, one-on-ones, the day-to-day stuff we do, and usually, even by explain what you do, what have you decided to do. It's mirroring enough for you to have the outside person perspective without getting more like mentoring, some of that. Only by talking about what you do is a great reflection for you to get there each time and do it in a structured way, with weeklies or stuff like that. It's something that can move you along with day by day, not big change.
I completely agree. I think that there's another aspect to it. That's one way that works great. Another way, but I'll give an example of the course that I'm doing, is that part of the course, what the students do is they comment on other people's work. Because you have to do a prompt, you have to do some sort of assignment, so you have to comment, you have to give feedback to the other person. The first few times you just give feedback and you try to improve, you really do try to help the other person, but when you follow up on this and you ask the questions, you ask the other person questions, and then when you ask, you think 1 second about it, you say, wait a second, I didn't answer that question in my work. So a lot of times when you try to, that's not necessarily just about yourself. When you try to help someone out, you have to comment and try to guide them, but also look internally to yourself, and it helps you a lot. So having said that, and again, I don't know how much I've blown your mind away. We didn't lose too many people, so it went pretty well. But aren't we going to share practical, what?
You locked the doors.
I locked the doors, yeah, of course. Nobody, at least that's what I told you. So we talked about a lot of strategic stuff, high level, soft skills, whatever, but I didn't give you guys any practical, we talked a little bit about practical tips, but it wasn't too much, right? So, you know, what do you think about that? Like, people are going to usually come and say, okay, but was that like a waste of time?
I think most people usually want the easy way to get like a recipe of how things needs to be done. And for good product managers, the whole point is to think outside the box all the time. Just take the pointers that were presented to you and just try and think creatively of stuff that will actually make you get out of your comfort zone. Because as you said, like a year, 2 years into your position, you usually hit that plateau, which is usually the part where you're in a sort of a comfort zone that you know how things work. And for most people in any aspect of life, not only professional, people find it very hard to push those boundaries. And as older as we get, it gets even harder, and as many more, like if you have children and if you have a husband or a wife, you have other responsibilities, it's even harder, it gets even harder on that part as well to push those boundaries. So it's always to think outside the box, how you can push those boundaries out, how you can get out of your comfort zone.
I have to agree. So that kind of concludes that part. What we'll do now is we'll have our panel of our distinguished panel of our product managers. So now,
thank you for warming up the audience. Now
yeah,
we'll start with the real show.
Yeah, now it's the real show. So I'll introduce everybody here, okay? Or maybe I'll let you guys introduce yourselves because I can see here. But Noam, you want to start?
Yeah. My name is Noam Eshel. I'm Senior Vice President for Product Management and Product Marketing in Avaya Access Soroka. Avaya Access Soroka is a fully owned subsidiary of the Orange Telecom Group, a company which is a French company, okay, with subsidiaries all over the telecom company. And the company is dealing with a solution for delivery of TV over different networks, predominantly on over the top, over the internet, like Netflix, everybody knows, multi-screen, this kind of stuff.
I'm Nir Cole, and I formerly was the Vice President of Product in multiple startups and large corporates at SAP, did for 10 years in the US, at NICE, startups, so I kind of jumped, talking about stepping out of comfort zone. Twice I changed from startups to enterprise and back. And today I'm supporting, helping startups as a product and strategy consultant.
Benny Reich. As my hobby, I'm doing big products, perception points, cyber is my day job. And on top of that, so it's not a big, there is no senior vice president, it's 30 people startup, right? But in addition to that, I'm doing a blog on product management and a podcast and mentoring. That's the real stuff.
And I'm Amit. I'm a product and strategy consultant for the past couple of years. My career started in Mamram as a developer, so I've got technical roots, but for the past 20 years, half in the Silicon Valley and half in Israel, I worked with various startups and large organizations, but in all cases, in leading the product around innovation and creating new products and getting them to market. Including working with Benny long years ago in the same company.
You are still not allowed at my house. Like my wife remembers, like we had he was in San Francisco, I was in Israel, so we had like late night calls, shouting at each other, so she remembers, Amit!
Amit, no, that's what you were saying.
Okay, so you guys didn't sit in the order that you needed to, but we'll still let you guys...
we can change.
We'll be able to...
I'm sitting in the right place.
Yeah, you're right. At least one thing. So I'll start with a few questions, and but the idea here is that everybody who has a question can ask, and the more that you guys ask, the better. I know the answer to what they're going to say. So I want to start with something that we discussed a little bit about in the beginning. What do you see as the differentiator between a junior and a senior product division? We talked about at the beginning, we talked about what are the different roles, and we talked about a lot of different things that a product manager does, and some people say that that's not my responsibility, it is part of my responsibility, it depends on the company and all that. How do you see that in the context of junior versus senior product manager?
I can start. I tell how it was for me. What made the change, and I know you don't like the metaphor of being the CEO of the product. I actually like it. But the change for me was when I understood that everything that relates to the product is my problem. And when that change happened in my mind, I started to become a good product manager, and everything before that I would fire me. Really.
Whatever happens to the product is basically your fault because it means you didn't translate it correctly.
It doesn't mean that it's my fault. It's my problem.
It's a problem.
An example, if R&D don't deliver, it's my problem. I need to solve that. Like again, it doesn't say that it's my fault but I have to
if it doesn't look like it's supposed to, so the engineer didn't understand what he needs to code basically.
Oh, I need to change the whole process to help R&D change the whole process because they can't execute whatever.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to?
First, from a manager perspective, I think the difference for me between a junior and a senior product manager is the level of proactiveness. I mean, a junior is normally, I see a junior product manager as responsive, while when he becomes senior, or when he becomes proactive, okay, and more independent and initiative, then I perceive him as a more senior, okay? It's not about titles. This is the first thing. Second point is when I started to realize to make the change, I changed the state of mind where I understood that when the token has fallen, that basically a product is a mean to end to create a business, okay, to make business. Basically, I would change the name. I had thought in the past to change the name of product manager to value manager. We are delivering value, regardless whether it is product or service or whatever it is. It's a mean to end to do business. That's it. Okay, and it doesn't have to be the best technology. It doesn't have to be the best product. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, everybody knows that the term MVP. Okay, but it needs to serve the business, and we need to create impact. And this is about it.
Took my thoughts.
I have a question.
Does anybody else wants to answer the question? The different question?
No.
I think the proactiveness was nicer way than I had in mind to explain what the difference is, but for me it was the moment that I realized that the future depends on me. So at the beginning, I took orders, right? Someone told me you need to do this and that and so forth. And at some point, I understood that if I'll go up to management and I'll convince them that instead of doing this, we should actually do this, and they actually bought into the idea, and all of a sudden everyone followed me, that's when I understood that now I'm senior. So, and it's the same about looking at others and seeing how proactive they are.
So I have a question. I'm a very junior product manager with very limited experience at this point. How do you, obviously you get like, if you, in your prestigious companies, you get to a point where like someone go through the interview, the first levels of interviews, and he basically makes a good impression and he comes to you as a CEO, CTO, whatever. What will differentiate one candidate from another in your perspective? Like, if he passes the HR, if he passes the team leader, and says like, and they say he's a good candidate, this is up to you for your final decision. What will basically, what are the elements that you're looking for in a product manager as a person? Because obviously the technical stuff is, again, technical, it's black and white. But you're looking for someone to fit into that puzzle of that company.
I think some of the points that you have touched on in the presentation were key to that. So from my perspective, I'll go back to the mindset and leadership as a point. And so if everything else is equal, I will put a disclaimer on that in a second. If everything else is equal, I'm looking for a person that I can see in their eye that they understand the challenge and the opportunity that they have to actually take ownership of the product moving forward. And the disclaimer that I wanted to make is that would even count more than the skills or the number of years or the whatever else they're bringing to the table. The domain expertise, which in my mind is even less important than others. So if I'll get someone that is not from the same domain, meaning he or she has learning curve to get into the process and everything, and they've got they need to learn things, but you can sense that they understand what is a senior product manager, what Benny was saying, that everything that the product manager is actually the product master. That he's the go-to guy for anything that's going to happen in the product, and he's not or she's not afraid of taking on that. For me, that would be the key differentiator between the people, even canceling a lot of other disadvantages on the way, because you can work with that. Because we all know and believe that when somebody has the right attitude, the mindset, when somebody comes to you already with the mindset of understanding what is the challenge and taking on the challenge, everything else can, you can mentor them on the way, you can find them a mentor that would help them along the way, even just to be that mirror, not necessarily a senior person, but just somebody to work with, and they will overcome all of these if they know what's the path.
Look, we can sit all day and ask because it's not one thing, right? It's a lot of things. For me, like two major things in top. After I understand that they can be a product manager and all the skills, one is I look for sharpness, or intelligence. Like product manager, because he doesn't understand many of the things that he's going to deal with, has to be able to grasp things very quickly in order to help other ask the right question in order to direct them, even if he doesn't know. So I'm looking for that he's thinking the right way. Hard to discover that, but that's one of the things I'm looking. The second one is really no ego. Like I need to understand that he's willing to get feedback, because and that goes to if he will do something wrong and I will need to mentor him and learn. If he's not willing to get feedback, we are dead. Okay, so I hedge in the past like very intelligent people but not able to get feedback. I told them I can take them. Okay, because you understand that it will fall. The last thing, there are many other small things. The last thing doesn't relate to the people, and that's sometimes people don't understand, especially if you build a group. I'm trying to create a diversity, okay? So the group is more than its part, okay? So maybe if I have like already very technical product managers, I will look for someone with analytics or someone with UX, so kind of capability, and I will not take good people because they're not helping the group grow.
That's why I said it's a puzzle.
Yeah.
Moving target. I'm jumping into the development. I want to
No,
add
you're not allowed to.
No, I need to add my name to it, but not in the beginning. I think my perspective is different than you guys. Of course, sharpness is important, but I take it that you interview the people that they're intelligent enough and they've passed the exam or whatever, the conversation. But what I think is important, which is kind of like counterintuitive, is prioritization. Now, prioritization sounds okay, right? Everybody needs to do prioritization. You don't need to be a product manager to do that. But a lot of times when you get product managers, especially those who are coming in, especially the young ones or not very experienced and trying to move on to be more experienced, they, again, because of their eagerness, because of a lot of motivation, they see the product as something that has to be perfect. And I think that our job is, again, it's very counterintuitive, and I hope that you guys will agree with me, that it means that you have to take a lot of compromises within your work. And it's very hard to do. It's someone who's, very intelligent, very motivated, and he said, okay, that's my product, I want to own it, I want to have everything fixed and everything working exactly as needed. A lot of times, these people, if you can challenge them and see, okay, now you have this kind of challenges, what would you prioritize? And if they can, it relates to the value, and I really like what you call it, like value manager. If the person sees it from the perspective of value and says, okay, I'm willing, it's very hard to do, and never heard it in an interview, by the way. Someone saying, okay, I'm willing to live with this bug or this feature that's not completed or this whatever, because this thing is more important, or moving on to the other thing that will bring me more value, and you can show me, I don't even care if it's right or not, but the thought process that he's gone through, I think that shows someone that can really move on to become a more senior,
I
more
agree,
responsible.
I agree, not agree, just because at least I found that if a person is intelligent and is willing to learn, that's something I can teach. Like, if he doesn't come with the right way of doing priority, if he's willing to listen and is smart enough, I can teach him how to do priority. Okay, to do the thinking. It's easier than if someone has an ego and and I will not be able to teach him. So I'm not saying it's not important, but I think that's something that you can
It's a
teach.
combination of both. I think it definitely can be taught. I think it's one of the
It's the key cornerstone. Again, a product manager who don't know how to prioritize can't be a product manager. That's for sure.
No, they can, and a lot of them
They
are.
can.
But,
They can.
They can, a lot of them are, but that's a different story. Yeah.
I would like to elaborate a little bit on the idea you conveyed and give a little bit a different perspective. I found it quite easy to evaluate candidates from a professional point of view, their professional skills, their knowledge. But the more challenging traits or characteristics to evaluate are the soft skills. Okay. And these are, and we have been talking about soft skill ability to, in order to level up our ability, our professional level. So what I'm looking in when I'm interviewing is really to see the attitude of the person, and if someone tells me that he doesn't know, if he try to laughing, okay, but if it's no go, okay, but if he's we reach a point that he admits that he doesn't know, nobody knows everything, then it's a good sign for me, okay? It's about ego, okay? It's about ego, okay? I'm ready to learn. So evaluating the soft skill, it's more challenging, and I think it is.
So you also agree that if they're willing to listen and learn, you can teach. Just as
Yeah, but sometimes if you are looking for a senior product manager, you need them to come with some expertise to bring. I'm looking also for product manager if they were not junior, okay, that I can learn from them, okay.
But
I don't know.
that's
Okay, when I'm introducing new disciplines to the company, new capabilities, new.
But what Benny is talking about, I think.
Just 2 out of 10, right?
Yeah.
10 more.
Yeah, but the importance of that is not just for not having ego and being able to learn from us, but also it's an indication of a key attribute of a product manager, of being able to listen and learn from others around. And so going about partnerships, you always have something that you would learn from the R&D manager, and from the marketing manager, and from a sales manager, and from your CEO, and from your chief of strategy, and from HR, from anyone around. I'm not even talking about customers and all those flies out there. Somebody with a like Benny said, if somebody shows an ego in an interview as a product manager, like I know what I'm doing and this is the way to do it, and I have my way, and this is, then he would go out and he will fight with the R&D manager, and then he would discount what customers are saying because he thinks it's probably something else, and it would just not work.
I would sometimes in an interview put a person in a defensive situation, so I would argue with him to the point that I would tell him, you're an idiot. I don't understand how you even thought about this, and I want to see how he reacts to the situation. Then after 2 minutes, I would explain that was a test. But I want to see how he reacts, because people react very differently in situations when you're under attack. And
Under flight.
exactly, I want to understand how you fight or not in that situation, and how do you accept the fact that maybe you don't understand everything or not.
What is the example, like, what is the percentage of attempts that you can define the person from like egomaniac to a normal person, especially when this person comes under big amount of stress from.
How long does it take me to understand if he is?
How many persons do you
How successful you are.
Yeah, how successful rate? What kind of conversion rate from getting from a person, like regular person, to the egomaniac, or how do you define? How many times did you fail with this?
Did you hire a lot of egomaniacs? I understand. I think eventually I picked.
And like,
I usually don't put them in a. I understand that they are going to be very stressed in an interview by definition, and I'm trying to do my best to let them feel as comfortable as possible by telling them about myself and so forth, until there is a point that I want to see how they react. So it's not that during the whole interview you're sitting like this, right? It's not at all. I explain how many times I failed in the past, and I'm open with it, and then after a couple of stories I ask you, how did you fail, and whatever. And at some point I'm just putting them in a corner, and I don't know, for me it works.
I want to relate to the issue of R&D, the relationship between product and R&D, and I have a question to the firm. What is the line between the product and the R&D? Okay, where the line is crossed. Okay. Yeah.
I think that between the two should be alignment of the business goal of the product, but everyone has the 80% that they need to follow on, so I'll give them to lead the execution done.
Yeah.
But eventually, both of them should be aligned on the business goal, so the priorities will be not
So,
top down, but you
so basically you said R&D execution and product definition, yeah?
80% of each.
Yeah.
I think it depends on the size of the company.
Yeah.
And the maturity of that. I think that when the company or the group is quite small, product and R&D are very, they find together. It's very close relationship. When they start with bigger, like 50, 100, this situation occur when there is a kind of separation, and I wouldn't say it's hard, but it becomes a little bit more difficult to have the communication that you had before, and to really get from the field or from the field is not always marketing or customers. It's development, it's team, the understanding of what you need now, or if you are doing like the requirement as data as part.
Yeah. So first I agree and I learned something new. Okay, I got a new perspective. And normally when it is a very technical product, the line is more blurred. Okay, but by the book, okay, in let's say mid-sized to big company, I think the definition is that product is responsible for the why and what. Okay, and R&D is responsible for the how. Okay, so this is, I think, once this is understood, and the product doesn't try to be an engineer, because sometimes there are many products which are kind of they come from R&D and they're trying to be better and trying. I think it's not a good idea.
I think
Why do you discount product that come from R&D? Do you not think that they have a valid point of view as well? And
No.
Because a lot of the people here are talking about the business side of things, business side of things. I myself come from the R&D section and moved to product. I'm more focused on the technical part. There are products that are more business oriented in the company.
Okay.
And, there is a valid place for the more technical part as well.
but it depends on, so what you feel transit. I also moved from R&D, and the moment it took me at least a year to change the mind. The moment I understood that I completed the transition is when I stopped. The design became boring, like take me some time. But you can value your opinion, okay? But you need to let R&D make the decisions, even if you disagree about. Okay, it's okay. You have a valid opinion. If you have from your experience, that's fine. Okay. Look, regarding, I think the line, when you look at how that's easy to find, but the line in reality is very, very different from company to company. I would like to put it in another perspective. In a way, the product manager is the one connecting between strategy and execution. And many times he's responsible also for the strategy, but let's say in a company that is not responsible for the strategy, he's the one making connecting the one. But
strategy is, it's also
it's
the way to realize the one.
Exactly. So he's connecting, okay? And the line is clear because the line is very vague because it depends on what you have, with your R&D. I had a similar meetup in which I explained that, in my opinion, again, the role of product manager is in a way, and I use the word on purpose to deliver value, to the customer and the business, and not to define. And there was a kind of VP say, what do you mean? It's my job. I said, yes. If I work with you and you're doing your job, it's no longer my job. I'm happy to leave the delivery to you, but in many companies, the development is not doing a perfect job on the execution, and then you need to help them, right? So that's why the line is a little blurry. You cannot say just, I'm responsible for the why and what, and it's their problem of the how. You need So
If they are not delivering appropriately, what would you do? Would you start coding?
no, so I will work with them on processes. I would go talk to them. There are many ways to help them, right? I will not do the execution itself, but there are many ways to cause execution.
And this is basically exercising leadership.
Yeah.
If I may add to that, I really agree with you because from my experience in a mid-sized company, when we work with R&D, I tell them that, guys, we are in the same boat. We have a guiding star, our goal, our users, our business values, and what we need to deliver. But it's not our point here to argue about things. You know what house is the best. I know what we need to do and why we need to do. Let's come to something. Let's move forward one next to each other and meet somewhere in the middle, or I will go further, or you will go further. So we will deliver something that we've been hired to do, that we want to do, that we believe in, as goals have been stated. And that's why here's the communications come up, because I cannot tell them what to do, how to do it. And many times, even before you come to the developers and they educate you on stuff that is possible or impossible. Although I have a technical background and technical education, they give me the most recent update, what can we do and what's not. And I'm deciding with them together how we're gonna reach, if we're not reaching 100% of it, so 90%, as much as possible to our goal. Okay, there could be bugs, we will fix them later, if we're delivering something that is needed.
Yeah. So look, some of the secret for successful product team is if you leave enough space for development to define. Okay, really, put a framework. It's like a child, right? You put like a kind of the right boundaries, but you need to let them play within the boundary and do things you didn't want them to do. In the small, because that's where the magic happens. Okay, if you have an innovative R&D, that's where the real magic happens.
And better not to tell them how to do it ever.
I think that one of the other aspects of following the how is product manager's job is to be the enabler along every step of the way of the execution, to create the compromises along the way if needed, or to answer some questions that maybe not have been answered at the beginning of the play. Because remember, take this definition and I'll see you in 2 weeks. It should be always accompanying the process of the execution. So they're not their job, but they are enablers along the way.
It's a bit trickier than that because as a product manager, you're not you need to be an enabler in terms of if there's a definition, if there's an agreement about what needs to be done, then following what Benny said, anything could turn to be your problem, so you need to go out and mitigate any risk that could be out there. So if R&D is going to hit a wall on something, then you would go out and be the enabler that would try and remove that wall before they even get there. But it's just to turn that around for a second and put it in context, it's only about the things that you already agreed to. Not agreed to. It's about the things that you directed them as agreed with them eventually, but based on your priorities, based on your vision, based on your goals that they're going to do. And so just to make sure that when we are saying the product manager has to be an enabler, it's only in the second phase of the execution in terms of just going around and removing the toys from their path so they won't step on them.
So I just want fun because we need to finish eventually, but someone needs to.
Question.
Yeah, if I can.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask about mentorship. Most of you have probably experience in that. What's your take on mentorship inside the company, and one is mentorship inside the company and one is mentorship outside, which would be maybe coaching or mentorship which is for money. And then there is Well, there's mutual benefit, but of a different kind.
I think the thing to consider is that first of all, any mentorship, I would say up front that any mentorship that one can get is worthwhile. But between the options, if we compare the options, the one thing, and it's probably obvious to think about, when you've got somebody from within the company, there are kind of a couple of disadvantages about the fact that he knows you. One of them is because he knows you and he knows the challenges, then when you are talking about something, what this person hears is already tainted because he knows the context, because he heard something from somebody else, and so he's not hearing you, he's hearing through a filter of what he already knows, which is a disadvantage to somebody from the outside that doesn't know anything, just takes it at face value, what you're giving, can actually attribute to the challenge. And the second obvious thing is that, especially as a company is a bit bigger, then there are issues about who else talks to who, intentionally or unintentionally, or over lunch, or at the cooler, or whatever. And so there could be some reservations in the discussion. From your side as well as from the other side, you can come with a problem, and I'm within the same company, and I'm sensitive to what I'm going to tell you because I already know something else that is going on somewhere else. And so it's going to affect what I can give you in return. But going back to my first point, if there's no option for external, then internal is certainly something to really take.
There is value in both. I think, as a manager, I never look at myself as manager, but always as mentor. So there is a lot of value that you can bring to your product managers, as a product, because it's not just what they tell you. You know some of the reality of the things. So sometimes you can help them more than an external mentor. But the problem with that, and that's why a lot of time you also need an external mentor, is that any challenges they have with you, that there you can have. There they need, someone external. Okay, so there is value in both.
So guys, we really need to finish.
The night is young.
The night is young, of course, but I think that eventually they need to go. I want to finish with one last question, and please give me each
few words.
one sentence answer. What advice would you give? Because going back into the whole topic of this conversation is how to level up as an experienced product manager moving up. So what advice would you give yourself when you were as an experienced as a product manager with 5 years of experience? What skill or which skill would you emphasize on and focus on, and in which way going on forward?
I can start. I don't know if I'm going to talk about mention skill. The two I knew about the question, so the two things that I prepared was one was mentorship. Certainly, as early as you can, persuade your boss to get you a mentor and work with you. It would do wonders. And the second thing for me was Lean Startup. It came later in my career, and it was an eye-opener because I wasted so much time at the beginning building things that turned out to be just useless and redundant. And so if anyone here doesn't yet know or practice that, then that would be my advice.
I would go with the concept of Lean Startup. So go out and reach the customers. Definitely, I used to stay too long in a lab and think that I know. And I like this sentence that I learned later in my career that says, as interesting as our opinion is as product managers, it's completely irrelevant. I really live by that. And the more you go out and meet people who are actually the users, the faster the better.
One advice is don't work too hard. I find a lot of product managers working too hard on the rock things, okay, on managing the backlog, the requirements, and you want to level up, so it means you need time to think, you need time for strategy, you need time to develop yourself, and if you're working too hard on the day-to-day details and not finding ways to let others do that, you will never level up.
I would echo the advice that was given by the VP Innovation of Amazon Web Services in the last AWS Summit in Israel. He gave a keynote to executive and he said that normally when he has new ideas, okay, first you write a PR, first the story about the product, you put it aside, okay, and then you see over time, and then only when the story is ready, okay, you start to define and to develop the product. And if the story leaves by the time, okay, because sometimes you have an idea and you are really hot on it, you really, and then when you wake up in the morning and you feel that the idea is not that good, okay, so be patient. Start with the story, okay, and then grow back to the product itself, the definition of product development.
The Jeff Bezos way on the Amazon. I'll just add mine, again, budding into it. I think that one of the methodologies that I like to use, though it's not a skill, but the riskiest assumption, I don't know if you guys heard of it, RAT, or riskiest assumption test, which means try to identify what's in everything that you're working right now, what is the place which is, it's more relevant to startups, I have to admit, but what is the process or the place where there's the most risk, and if that thing fails, that's going to be detrimental to the project, and start with that. Because we have a tendency to delay all the things that are riskier. Start with that. Start with the riskiest thing first, and if you fail quickly. Thank you, panel. Ben and Lewagon. It was a pleasure being here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Bye-bye.